My wife sold my car while I was in the ICU. She didn't expect what I did next. I never expected to wake up with fluorescent lights burning into my retinas and the rhythmic beeping of medical equipment as my only companion. 3 weeks in an intensive care unit changes a man. The accident had been severe. A delivery truck running a red light at 55 miles per hour will do that. Multiple fractures, internal bleeding, and a traumatic brain injury had left me hovering between worlds. When consciousness finally returned in full, my first coherent thought wasn't about my injuries. It was about Vanessa, my wife of 5 years, and whether she'd been worried sick. Then I thought about my 1967 Mustang Fastback, midnight blue with original interior. That car represented more than transportation, it embodied years of weekend restoration work alongside my father before cancer took him. Every bolt, every panel, every inch of that vehicle contained conversations and moments I could never replace. "Mr. Thompson, you're awake. How are you feeling?" The nurse adjusted something on one of the machines. "Like I've been hit by a truck," I mumbled, the irony not lost on me. "My wife? She's been notified. I'm sure she'll be here soon." Vanessa arrived 2 hours later, designer handbag swinging from her forearm, fresh manicure catching the light. Something felt off about her appearance, too polished for someone whose husband had been unconscious for weeks. "Mason. Thank God." Her embrace was brief, perfunctory. "The doctors said you might not," she didn't finish the sentence. I attempted a smile. "Takes more than a truck to keep me down. How are things at home?" A flicker of something, hesitation. Guilt, crossed her features before she composed herself. "Everything's fine. I've been handling things." "And the Mustang?" "It wasn't with me in the accident." Her eyes didn't quite meet mine. "I had to make some difficult decisions while you were indisposed." The heart monitor betrayed my reaction before I could mask it. "What does that mean?" "The medical bills, Mason. They were astronomical, even with insurance. I sold the car to cover the expenses." The room seemed to tilt sideways. "You sold my father's car? Without consulting me? You were in a coma. Decisions had to be made." Something in her tone didn't align with her explanation. 5 years of marriage had taught me Vanessa's tells, the slight lift in her voice when fabricating a situation, the way her right hand unconsciously moved toward her collar. "Who bought it?" I kept my voice measured, controlled. "A collector from Phoenix. He gave us a fair price." I nodded slowly, careful to maintain an impassive expression. "I see. Well, you did what you thought was necessary." She seemed relieved by my apparent acceptance, perhaps mistaking my restraint for agreement. That night, after Vanessa left, I asked the night nurse for my personal effects. Among them was my phone, with only 5% battery remaining. Before it died, I made 2 calls. The first to my longtime friend Michael, an insurance investigator. The second to Daniel Harmon, the attorney who had drafted our prenuptial agreement 5 years earlier. Both conversations were brief, direct, and purposeful. I had always been methodical in business and personal matters alike. This situation would require the same measured approach: observation, information gathering, strategic planning, and precise execution. Recovery required 6 additional weeks in the hospital, followed by intensive physical therapy. Throughout this time, Vanessa's visits grew increasingly sporadic. She attributed her absences to work demands at her boutique real estate office, but the occasional sand in her hair or the unfamiliar cologne that sometimes clung to her clothes told a different story. I maintained the facade of the grateful, oblivious husband while Michael conducted his investigation. 17 days after my initial call, he visited me during Vanessa's conspicuous absence. "I've traced the car," he said without preamble, placing a manila folder on my hospital tray. "It wasn't sold to cover medical expenses." Inside were photographs of my Mustang parked at a vacation resort in San Diego, along with credit card statements showing Vanessa had booked a 10-day stay under her name and that of Robert Klein, her office manager. The dates corresponded with her longest absence from my bedside. There's more, Michael continued. The car was transferred using a medical power of attorney document that was only supposed to activate if you were permanently incapacitated or brain dead. According to your neurologist, you never met those criteria. I studied the documents, a cold clarity settling over me. Who has the car now? Still in Klein's possession. He's been driving it around like a trophy. I nodded once. And Daniel? Building the case as we speak. The fraudulent transfer alone would be enough, but combined with the misuse of the power of attorney and the evidence of infidelity despite your prenup's fidelity clause. Michael trailed off, his implication clear. Thank you. I closed the folder. I need one more favor. Name it. I want to recover the car without alerting Vanessa. Can you handle that? Michael's smile contained no warmth. Consider it done. Over the following weeks, I maintained the performance of a husband focused solely on recovery. I expressed gratitude for Vanessa's sacrifices during my hospitalization. I never mentioned the Mustang again, leading her to believe I had accepted its loss. When I noticed her spending increasing amounts on luxury items our household budget couldn't possibly sustain, I made no comment. 3 months after the accident, I was discharged with a clean bill of health. The doctors called my recovery remarkable. I attributed it to having a clear purpose driving every painful physical therapy session. We should celebrate your recovery, Vanessa suggested one evening, her tone honeyed with false affection. Dinner at Carrick's tomorrow? Just the two of us. Perfect, I agreed. I've been thinking about our future too. The gleam in her eyes suggested she interpreted my comment as forgiveness, as moving forward together. She had no idea I'd chosen that particular restaurant because it was where we had signed our prenuptial agreement 5 years earlier. The symmetry seemed appropriate. Sometimes the most effective response isn't immediate. It's patient, deliberate, and precisely timed. Carrick's hadn't changed, same warm lighting, same leather booths, same discreet service. I arrived early to ensure everything was arranged perfectly. The maitre d', an old acquaintance, discreetly confirmed the table I had requested was ready. Vanessa arrived 20 minutes late, dressed in a new outfit I hadn't seen before. She kissed my cheek, her perfume too strong, too eager to mask other scents. You look handsome, she said, sliding into the booth. Almost like your old self.
I feel new, he replied truthfully. Like a different man entirely. We ordered drinks, scotch for me, despite the lingering medication warnings he had received upon discharge. Some occasions warrant exceptions. To new beginnings, Vanessa offered, raising her glass. I met her toast. To seeing things clearly. Throughout the appetizer course, she dominated the conversation with trivial office gossip, carefully avoiding any mention of Robert Klein. I noticed she checked her phone frequently, always keeping it face down on the table. I've been reflecting on everything that's happened, I said as our main course is arrived. How quickly things can change. That's why we have to seize every moment, she agreed, misinterpreting my meaning entirely. Like opportunities that present themselves while you lose bandits unconscious? Her fork paused halfway to her mouth. What? I maintained eye contact. The Mustang. You told me you sold it to cover medical expenses. I did. Her recovery was quick, practiced. The bills were enormous, Mason. That's interesting, because according to our insurance company, 97% of the medical expenses were covered under our policy. The remaining amount was well below the value of that car. I took a measured sip of scotch. Would you like to revise your explanation? You don't understand the financial pressure I was under. San Diego is lovely in the spring, I hear. I placed my phone on the table, screen up, displaying a photo of her and Robert beside my Mustang at the resort. Togi imagine it's better experienced when you lose bandits fighting for his life. The color drained from her face. Mason, I can explain. No need. Your actions have been remarkably eloquent. I signal to the water, who approached with a leather portfolio. Consider this dinner a parting gesture. I placed the portfolio before her. Inside were the divorce papers, already signed by me, with yellow tabs indicating where her signature was required. You can't be serious. Her voice had lost its cultivated softness. Completely. You find the terms fair, considering the circumstances. The prenuptial agreement's fidelity clause is quite specific. She lived through the documents, her expressions shifting from shock to outrage. This is robbery. You expect me to walk away with nothing after 5 years? Not nothing. You keep your personal belongings and your separate property. The marital assets, including the house and our savings, revert to me, as stipulated in the contract you signed in this very restaurant. And if I refuse? Then we proceed to court, where your fraudulent use of the medical power of attorney becomes a matter of public record. Your real estate license might not survive that scrutiny. Sister that me, the strangers she had married but never truly known. Where will I go? I understand you've already packed several suitcases for your next trip. To solve suffice until you make arrangements. Her hand trembled as she reached for her water glass. And Robert? Mr. Klein has already returned my property and tendered his resignation from your firm. It seems his enthusiasm for your relationship diminished considerably when faced with accessory charges to fraud. The water returned with a pen. Vanessa's signature, usually flowing and confident, appeared jagged and defeated on each marked page. I never thought you capable of this, she said, closing the portfolio. That, I replied, was your fundamental miscalculation. The morning after the divorce papers were signed, I stood in my driveway, running my hand along the Mustang sod. Michael had recovered it 2 weeks earlier, storing it at his brother's garage while the legal matters were settled. The car had suffered some neglect but no permanent damage. Like me, it could be restored with patience and proper care. The house felt different without Vanessa's presence, more spacious, less burdened by pretense. Yet Channing relaxed the same evenings she had removed her remaining possessions under the watchful eye of my attorney's representative. My phone chimed with a message from Michael, "Hope's the first day of the rest of your life?" I snapped a photo of the Mustang and sent it with the caption, reclaiming what matters. The recovery process, both physical and emotional, wasn't instantaneous. Some nights I woke with phantom pain from heel injuries. Other evenings, unexpected anger surfaced at how easily 5 years of marriage had been discarded. But these moments didn't define my experience. They were merely weather patterns passing through a broader landscape. 3 months after the divorce, I received a letter from Vanessa. She had moved to Portland, started over at another real estate firm. The letter contained apologies, justifications, and thinly veiled suggestions that perhaps we could reconnect once emotions had settled. I didn't respond. Some chapters don't require additional paragraphs. Instead, I focused on the building. The accident had given me a rare perspective, a clear demarcation between before and after, between what I had accepted and what I would now require. I established boundaries that would have seemed foreign to my younger self. I approached relationships with both greater caution and greater honesty. 6 months into this new chapter, I drove the fully restored Mustang to my father's grave. The autumn leaves created a kaleidoscope of colors against the deep blue paint. You always said a man is defined by how he responds when life throws him under the bus, I said to the granite marker. Or in my case, when a bus nearly throws life out of me. The wind rustled through nearby trees, a conversation without words. On the drive home, I took the coastal route, windows down, the engines rumble a counterpoint to the ocean's rhythm. A mile-marked distance not used from where he had been, but from who he had been, a man who had mistaken accommodation for strength, compromise for character. The Mustang wasn't just a car restored. It represented a promise kept to myself and to my father's memory that some things, once valued, are worth fighting to recover. Some principles, once established, must be maintained regardless of cost. As evening approached, I parked in my drive-up and looked at the house, not as a structure shared with someone who had betrayed me, but as a space for whatever came next. The key difference was that now, I understood the importance of who held the keys. The choices we make when confronted with betrayal reveal more about our character than the betrayal itself. Mine had been deliberate, measured, and ultimately libertine, not just from a failed Mary, but from the burden of being someone I was never meant to be.